The asteroid port of Drenner 5 was never quiet. Ships came and went, every hour massive cargo freighters, sleek private cruisers, rusted mining barges. Aliens of every shape and color crowded the docking bays. Merchants shouted over one another, selling rare metals, frozen fish from deep ocean planets, or shiny tech parts scavenged from old battlefields. But today, the noise stopped. It began as a faint scratching sound. At first, no one noticed. The sound echoed along the metal floors, tamy claws, tapping, scraping, moving fast. Then someone shouted, voice shaking, "Gremlins!" Panic exploded. Merchants grabbed their goods and ran. Pilots sealed their ship doors. Security officers raised weapons, though most knew it wouldn't help. The scratching grew louder, hundreds of small feet skittering closer. From the shadows of the far corridor, they appeared. Dozens of gremlins. 1/2 meter tall, sharp teeth, glowing yellow eyes. Their fur was matted with oil, and metal shards clung to their claws like trophies. They moved like a living swarm, weaving between crates and wires. Every alien on Drenner 5 knew the stories. Gremlins could chew through hull plating in minutes. They tore apart engines for fun. They dismantled weapons, ripped wires out of walls, and left chaos wherever they went. Entire mining colonies had been shut down because a nest of gremlins moved in. But this swarm was different. They didn't attack. They didn't even glance at the parked ships nearby. Instead, they moved together fast, purposeful toward one spot in the bay. Bay 42. There, a single freighter had just docked. It wasn't a warship or a high-tech trader. It was small, plain, and clearly human-built. Its paint was scratched. Its engines looked old. No alien on the station cared about it until now. The gremlins stopped at the edge of Bay 42. Then something impossible happened. They bowed. The swarm lowered their heads, claws resting on the floor, as if waiting for permission to move. From behind the cargo ramp, footsteps echoed. Figure appeared, a tall human in a dark jacket, carrying a datapad under one arm. His hair was messy, and his face calm, almost bored, as if gremlins bowing to him was the most normal thing in the world. The aliens watching from behind crates and doors froze. One merchant whispered, voice trembling, "Why would gremlins obey anyone?" The human walked down the ramp without fear. A few gremlins scurried forward, climbing the ramp and vanishing inside the freighter. Others began unloading cargo crates, carrying them with surprising care, placing each one exactly where the human pointed. The crowd stared. A Trinari dock worker named Varric had seen gremlins before, but only as a nightmare. He had lost an entire shipment of crystal engines when a small pack invaded his hold. They didn't take anything. They just shredded every part into useless pieces before vanishing. And now, here they were, acting like disciplined workers. Varric muttered to himself, "This isn't right. Gremlins don't serve anyone." One of the station's security officers, a tall reptilian soldier, edged closer to Varric. Maybe he's using control tech, mind chips, neural collars, but there were no collars, no wires. The gremlins moved freely, glancing at the human. Now and then, like they were, loyal. The human noticed the crowd watching him. He gave a polite nod, then turned back to his datapad as if their stares didn't matter. A young gremlin, carrying a box, stumbled. The human whistled one sharp sound. Instantly, 2 other gremlins rushed over, helped lift the box, and carried it the rest of the way. The whistle seemed to be their signal. Varric's curiosity burned hotter. If the human was using some kind of control, it wasn't any tech, Varric knew. And if it wasn't tech, then it was something worse. The other dock workers kept their distance. No one wanted to risk angering the gremlins. The rumor was already spreading through the station. Every whisper carried the same words. A human commands gremlins. Hours passed, but the gremlins didn't cause trouble. They loaded and unloaded, fixed small dents in the freighter's hull, even swept debris away from the landing gear. Varric had never seen gremlins repair something before. When the last crate was inside, the human turned toward the swarm. "All right, that's all for today. The gremlins froze, then scattered, some vanishing into the freighter, others disappearing into the vents and shadows of the station. The crowd slowly returned to their work, though the air still felt tense. No one forgot what they'd just seen. Varric stayed where he was, eyes on the human ship, yet a feeling this was only the beginning. Somehow a single human had the loyalty of the most destructive creatures in the galaxy. And Varric intended to find out how. But as he turned to leave, he noticed something chilling, two shadowy figures watching from a high walkway above the bay. They weren't dock workers. They weren't security. Sprech, and when they saw Varric looking, they slipped away. He knew that look. Those were Syndicate spies. If they had seen what he had seen, then the human and his gremlins were about to have much bigger problems than curious dock workers. The silent protection for the rest of the day, Bay 42 looked quiet. The human freighter stayed docked. Its engines were cold. No more gremlins came out, and the crowd around the bay slowly returned to normal business. But Varric couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He kept glancing toward the high walkway where he had seen the two shadowy figures earlier. Syndicate spies, he was sure of it. Kind of people who smiled while selling your life to the highest bidder. And if the Syndicate knew a human could control gremlins, they would want that power. Varric decided to keep watch. He sat on a crate near Bay 42, pretending to check cargo lists, but his eyes kept sweeping the shadows. The human came and went a few times, talking to the dockmaster, ordering supplies. Always calm, always alone. But Varric noticed something strange. Whenever the human left the freighter, Gremlin would quietly appear nearby, perched on a beam, hiding behind a vent, or blending into the mess of wires along the wall. They didn't follow him openly, but they watched. It was protection. Silent protection. Varric had seen bodyguards before, but these creatures didn't stand in the open or carry weapons. They stayed hidden until needed. The human didn't even glance at them, yet they reacted to his every move. Late that night, the port's lights dimmed to their night cycle glow. Most merchants closed their stalls. The air grew colder. What? Was when Varric saw them, the same two Syndicate spies, creeping along the upper walkway again. They were moving toward Bay 42. Varric's first instinct was to call security, but he stopped himself. The Syndicate had its claws in half the station. Guards. If he called the wrong one, it might warn them instead. So he stayed where he was, pretending to sleep on his crate, while his eyes followed the spies. They stopped above the freighter, crouching low. One of them pulled out a small black device, a scrambler, the kind used to disable security feeds. The cameras in Bay 42 flickered and died. From the corner of his vision, Varric saw something move in the shadows below. A gremlin. It was sitting in a dark vent, watching the spies. Its glowing yellow eyes narrowed. The spies dropped down silently, landing near the freighter's cargo ramp. One of them pulled a lockbreaker from his belt and moved toward the hatch. The other kept watch. That was when it happened. A soft hiss, metal on metal. Shadow moved behind the lookout spy. Before he could turn, two gremlins dropped from the ceiling onto his back. They didn't bite. They just grabbed his arms, twisted, and pulled him into the dark corner between two crates. The other spy froze, hearing a muffled grunt. Oh. He turned, just in time to see a small, sharp-toothed face staring at him from the hatch. More gremlins poured out. They didn't attack wildly. They didn't tear him apart like the stories said. Instead, they surrounded him in perfect silence, forming a tight circle. He tried to run, but every time he stepped back, a clawed hand blocked his path. The human appeared in the doorway. He didn't raise a weapon. He just looked at the spy. "Tell your bosses," the human said quietly, "to stay away from my ship." The spy swallowed hard, nodding quickly. The gremlins opened a narrow path for him, and he bolted into the darkness. The other spy, the one in the crates, was released a moment later, limping, shaking, and pale. Both were gone in seconds. Varric's mouth was dry. He had just seen gremlins. Showing restraint, the human looked up toward where Varric sat. Their eyes met. For a moment, Varric thought the human would be angry. He had seen all this. But instead, the man gave a small, knowing nod, then turned back inside his ship. The gremlins melted into the shadows again, leaving no trace of the incident except the faint smell of machine oil in the air. The next morning, the station buzzed with new rumors. Some said a syndicate team had been spotted fleeing the port in a damaged shuttle. Others swore they heard strange noises in the vents all night. No one could agree on the details, but one thing was clear. Bay 42 was no longer just another docking spot. It was a warning. Varric's curiosity turned into determination. He needed to know how a human, just one human, had done the impossible. Had he tamed the gremlins, trained them, or was there some deeper, stranger connection? Because if the sin... 2 days passed. Syndicate didn't send any more spies, at least. None Varric could see, but he knew them too well. They never gave up. They just changed tactics. Varric's suspicion proved right on the third day. A tall alien in a black coat arrived at the port. His skin was pale green, his eyes hidden behind silver lenses. He walked with slow, confident steps, like someone who owned every place he entered. Varric knew his type of syndicate negotiator. The kind who preferred words over weapons, but whose words could be deadlier than a blaster shot. The negotiator didn't go to the dockmaster. He didn't check in. Walked straight to Bay 42. The human was there, leaning against a crate, checking a datapad. The gremlins were nowhere in sight, at least not where normal eyes could see. The negotiator stopped a few meters away. "I represent an organization interested in your talent," he said, his voice smooth like oil. The human didn't look up. "Not interested. You haven't even heard the offer." "I don't need to," the negotiator smiled thinly. "You control them? No one in the galaxy can do that. Not the military, not the guild, not even the syndicate. That kind of power is priceless." The human finally looked at him. "They're not a weapon. They're my crew." Varric's heart skipped a beat. Crew? Was he serious? The negotiator's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Everything is a weapon in the right hands. Imagine any ship, any fortress, any weapon system. Dismantled in minutes, you could name your price. You could live like a king." The human's voice stayed calm. "And how many would die so you could have that power?" The negotiator tilted his head. "Is that supposed to bother me?" For the first time, the human put the datapad down and stepped closer. "Then you're wasting my time." The negotiator didn't move. His smile faded slightly. "You can't hide forever. Sooner or later, someone will take them from you. And when that happens, they won't be so gentle." The air grew tense. The human didn't answer. But Varric, watching from the shadows, noticed movement above. Them small shapes crawling silently along the beams. For gremlins. They weren't attacking, just positioning, watching, waiting. The negotiator finally stepped back. "Think about my offer," he said, his tone icy now. "We will speak." Again, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. The human stayed still for a few seconds, then looked up toward the beams. "You can relax," he said quietly. The gremlins vanished into the vents. Varric's mind was spinning. The human had just turned down a syndicate deal, a dangerous move. And he had done it without fear, knowing the syndicate never forgave insults. That night, Varric's curiosity got the better of him. He approached the human in Bay 42. "I saw what happened," Varric said cautiously. "Most people wouldn't say no to the syndicate." The human didn't look surprised. "Most people don't have friends who can chew through steel in 5 seconds. Varric hesitated. "So, you trained them?" The human chuckled. "You don't train gremlins. You earn their trust. And trust isn't free." That answer only made Varric more curious. "Why you? Out of all the species, why do they follow a human?" The human's smile faded. "'Cause I gave them something no one else ever did." "What's that?" "Choice." Before Varric could ask more, a loud siren blared across the station. The warning lights flashed red, coming ships multiple signatures dropping out of warp near the station. Varric's datapad beeped with a port alert. He glanced at it and felt his stomach twist. It wasn't a merchant fleet. It wasn't a patrol. It was a syndicate strike team. The siege of Bay 42, the station shook. A deep, echoing vibration rattled the walls as heavy docking clamps locked into place. Over the loudspeakers, the automated voice repeated, "Warning. Unauthorized vessels in docking sequence." All personnel clear the bays. Varric pressed against the bulkhead, watching the human in Bay 42. The man wasn't panicking. He wasn't even moving fast. Instead, he calmly shut his datapad and spoke into a small CUM device. "They're here," the human said. Varric didn't hear a reply, but he saw it. From the shadows of the vents, dozens of tiny eyes began to glow faint green. The Gremlins were waking up. The Syndicate didn't waste time. Their boarding party marched in 6 armored shock troopers in black plating, followed by 2 tall enforcers carrying heavy pulse rifles. Behind them, a figure in a long coat walked with slow steps. Varric recognized him instantly, the negotiator from earlier. He stopped just outside the bay. "Final offer, human. Hand them over. You walk away alive." The human didn't answer. He simply tilted his head like he was listening to something far away. Varric followed his gaze and realized he was looking up. The negotiator noticed too. "What are you?" it began. A screech of tearing metal rang out as a vent cover crashed down, striking one of the Syndicate troopers in the head. The man fell instantly. From the dark holes above, a flood of Gremlins poured out. They were fast blurs of teeth, claws, and wiry limbs. The first trooper fired blindly into the swarm, but it didn't help. The Gremlins were already inside his armor joints, chewing through wires and hydraulic lines. He screamed as his weapon went dead and his helmet lights flickered out. Varric had seen Gremlins before, but never like this. This wasn't random destruction. This was coordinated. They moved in groups of 3 or 4, each team targeting a specific point gun barrels, helmet visors, oxygen lines. Within 30 seconds, 2 more troopers were down, their armor falling apart in chunks. The enforcers raised their heavy rifles, then the lights in the bay went out.
Ow.
Total darkness. Only the faint green glow of Gremlin eyes remained, darting through the blackness. The sound was the worst part. A mix of high-pitched chittering, metal cracking, and the muffled curses of Syndicate soldiers being dragged to the ground. Negotiator tried to back away, but a Gremlin leaped onto his shoulder, snapping at the cables of his CUM earpiece. He grabbed it and threw it off, but another 2 landed on his coat, tearing at the fabric and pulling hidden weapons from inside. "Call them off," he shouted into the darkness.
Out of the human's voice came calm and cold.
"You came into my bay with weapons. This is you calling the fight." Something heavy crashed a pulse rifle, ripped apart mid-shot, its core spilling. Sparks across the floor. The last 2 troopers tried to retreat toward the dock entrance. Didn't make it. A Gremlin team dropped from the ceiling onto their backs, chewing through the magnetic seals of their armor until the plates fell away. And then, silence. The bay lights flickered back on. Every Syndicate soldier was down. Some were unconscious. Others simply trapped in suits that no longer worked. Their weapons lay in a heap, half dismantled, half eaten. The Gremlins stood scattered across the bay, breathing fast but still. They looked at the human. He gave a small nod. Without a sound, they vanished back into the vents. The negotiator was on his knees, his coat in tatters. His silver lens glasses hung from one ear. "You think this is over?" he rasped. "The Syndicate has fleets, armies. We'll burn this station too." The human stepped forward. "No," he said quietly. "You'll tell them this station is off limits. We'll tell them if they come back, they won't leave." The negotiator's eyes narrowed. "You think they'll believe me?" "They'll believe," the human said, "because you'll still be alive to tell them." The Gremlin's glowing eyes reappeared in the shadows above, watching silently. The negotiator looked around at the wrecked bay, at the silent swarm. Hidden in the walls, and for the first time, Varric thought he saw real fear in the man's expression. Without another word, the negotiator stumbled to his feet and left, dragging one of his unconscious men with him. Varric stepped closer. They listened to you like soldiers." The human shook his head. "No, they listened because they wanted to." Varric hesitated, then asked the question that had been eating at him since day 1. "Who are you?" The human gave a faint smile. "Someone who learned that in this galaxy, the smallest allies can be the most dangerous." Outside the bay, the station intercom announced that the Syndicate ships were leaving dock. No more threats for now, but Varric knew this wasn't the end. If the Syndicate really wanted the Gremlins, they'd come back. And next time, it might not be a boarding party. It might be a war. The next morning, the Auroras comes burst to life. The crew rushed to the central hub, tension thick in the recycled air. A familiar seal shimmered on the display, the emblem of Earth's global command. A voice crackled through, calm and... "Official Aurora, this is Earth Mission Control. We've received your return request. Proceed directly to Docking Bay 7. No deviations." Alina exchanged a look with Lieutenant Ramos. Docking Bay 7 wasn't where ships like theirs normally landed. It was a restricted facility, military only. "This is Captain Kor," she replied, her voice steady. "Our ship's been compromised. We've lost half our crew. We request immediate quarantine and full medical inspection upon arrival." There was a pause. Too long of a pause. And the voice returned, identical in tone. "Negative, Captain. Docking Bay 7 only. No quarantine necessary. Your crew is safe." Elena's jaw tightened. "Repeat that last statement. Your crew is safe." The words weren't reassurance. They were a command. Dr. Amani leaned in close, whispering, "That's not mission control. It sounds synthetic." Ramos's fingers flew over the console, peeling apart the transmission layers. His face paled. "Captain, this signal didn't come from Earth." The air seemed to grow colder. "Source?" Alina asked. Ramos swallowed. "Inside the Aurora, Section C, the old hydroponics bay. That section had been sealed years ago after a system failure. No one had been inside since the deep space mission began." Alina stood. "Arm yourselves. I'm going to see." The corridor to the hydroponics bay was dark, dust floating in the weak beam of their flashlights. The sealed bulkhead groaned as Ramos overrode the lock. The door slid open, and a wave of warm, humid air rolled out, carrying the scent of soil and something faintly metallic. The plants were alive, thriving. But their roots weren't in soil anymore. They had fused into the Aurora's walls, their tendrils disappearing deep into the metal. The entire bay pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. In the center, standing perfectly still, was Ensign Hale, one of the crew thought lost months ago. His eyes were glazed, his skin pale. When he spoke, his voice wasn't his own. "King Bay 7, he said, in the same calm tone as Mission Control. "They are waiting for you." Lena took a step forward, weapon raised. "What happened?" "To you?" His lips moved, but the voice that came out was layered. Hale's voice over something deeper, alien. "You brought us home? Now bring the rest." Before anyone could react, the plant surged, wrapping around Hale and pulling him into the wall. He vanished without a sound. The heartbeat in the metal grew louder. Ramos turned to Alina, his voice shaking. "Captain, I think Earth already has this thing." No turning back. The heartbeat in the metal didn't fade. It grew faster, as if the Aurora itself was excited. "Back to the bridge," Alina ordered, her voice tight. They sprinted. Through the dim corridors, the sound following them, not through the air, but through the soles of their boots. The ship wasn't just carrying them anymore. It was leading them. When they reached the bridge, the starfield outside had shifted. The Aurora's thrusters were firing uncommanded. Earth loomed larger on the display. "Navigation's locked," Ramos said, slamming at the controls. "It's overriding me." "Autopilot's hardwired to Docking Bay 7. Cut main engine," Selena said. "I can't. Every time I kill power, it reroutes through subsystems I didn't even know existed." Dr. Amani's voice shook. "It's not autopilot. It's the infection. It's the same thing in Section C is in the ship's systems now." When new transmission came through, voice identical to Mission Control. "Docking sequence engaged. Prepare for atmospheric entry." Elena grabbed the comm mic. "This is Captain Kor. We will not dock. We are initiating emergency." Her words cut off as every screen on the bridge flickered, showing the same image. Earth's surface, serene and blue, with dozens of other ships descending toward various docking bays. Some were commercial, some were military. All of them had the same faint, unnatural green glow pulsing along their hulls. "They're already here," Ramos whispered. The hum in the ship deepened into a low vibration. The Aurora wanted to go home. Alina made a decision. Prep the escape pods. We're not bringing this thing to Earth. They ran. Emergency lights strobed red as systems failed one by one, not from malfunction, but from deliberate shutdowns. The ship was resisting them, locking doors, sealing hatches. By the time they reached the pod bay, only 2 pods remained. The others were gone, ejected into the black without warning. Ramos dove into one pod, Imani into the other. Lena hesitated, looking back down the corridor toward the heart of the Aurora. For just a second, she thought she saw Hale again, standing in the flickering light, watching her. His voice echoed in her mind. "Bring us home." She slammed the hatch shut and launched. The pod spun away, the Aurora shrinking in the viewport until the ship turned. Not toward Earth now, but toward them. Its thrusters burned bright. Chasing. Elena's pod computer blared. Autopilot override detected. Destination Earth. Passengers. 1. Her stomach dropped. It wasn't letting her escape. Far ahead, the blue curve of Earth grew in the glass, and in orbit above it like seeds. Around a planet, dozens of green glowing ships were already waiting.